Get off this property right now, or I'll call the HOA security." Kari's lowest screamed, her shrill voice slicing through the morning air. Standing at the edge of my front porch, she looked ridiculous, arms akimbo and her pastel pink blouse hardly blending with the rugged beauty of my ranch. I stood silent, locking eyes with her while glancing at the two HOA minions shuffling uneasily behind her. They looked like deer caught in headlights. "You don't belong here," she barked, jabbing her pen at my newly painted navy blue barn, transforming her clipboard into a weapon of sorts. "That color isn't authorized, and so are those fences. You must comply with community standards." A slight smirk creased my lips. "Kari's, this ranch isn't part of your HOA jurisdiction," I replied coolly, taking a step forward. "I can paint this barn polka-dotted if I want." Before Kari's could respond, the gravel crunched under a heavy vehicle, distracting her. I could hear the distant roar of 3 black SUVs approaching along the dirt road. Her eyes darted, brow furrowing in disbelief as the first SUV rolled to a stop. "Who is that?" she hissed. I didn't approve. "Sir." A tall man in a dark suit emerged from the lead vehicle, sunglasses shielding his gaze. "Are these individuals harassing you again?" I nodded, pointing to Kari's, who now looked as if she might faint. The shop agent pulled his sunglasses down, revealing cold eyes that seemed entirely unfazed by her antics. "Step away," he warned, voice low but firm. This is all fake." Kari shrieked, "You don't belong here." The air thickened as I felt the tide shift. Her bravado crumbled in the face of authority. The agents were unfurling their badges, and her hysteria had drawn the attention of anyone nearby. Suddenly, in a moment of chaos, a metallic bang echoed from the south gate, snapping my attention. The tautness of the situation ratcheted higher. "We have movement at the south gate," one agent murmured into his earpiece. "You should see this." Kari's fumbled with her phone, dialing frantically, her voice a crescendo of panic. "Yes, they are here. They've got federal agents. You have to do something." I couldn't stifle my laugh. She was flailing. "Kari's, I suggest you hang up and step aside. It'll only make things worse." From the corner of my eye, I saw dark shapes lumbering down the hill, 2 bulldozers and the accompanying trucks proudly displaying a crooked banner reading Red Ridge Future Community Development Project, Phase 1. My blood boiled. Her plans to claim my property for her HOA expansion had gone too far. Perfect timing, isn't it? I turned to the agents as Kari's went quiet, her face pale. "They are trespassing." "Step away," the lead agent commanded, looking back at her as I stepped up the porch and toward the approaching machines. "What's happening?" Kari stuttered, her confidence evaporating. I didn't answer as I approached the bulldozer operator, whose bored expression was infuriating. "You're trespassing," I stated firmly. "You don't have permission to be here." "I have orders from the HOA," he replied, shrugging as if he were discussing the weather. "You need to step aside." 5 minutes, I said, "or I'll have you arrested for destruction of property." There was an intensity in the air then, one that felt electric. Marcus, my former partner from all those years in D.C., had just pulled into the driveway in my rusty truck. He jumped out, immediately assessing the scene. "Did you find anything?" I asked, my heart racing. "Yeah," he replied, voice low. "It's all happening. The hearing, the documents. Let's just say Kari's plans are crumbling." But I didn't take my eyes off the operator, who rolled his eyes, hopping back into the bulldozer. "You don't scare me," he grunted, revving the engine. Before I could respond, Marcus whipped out his badge, his demeanor hardening. "Step away from the machinery, sir," he commanded, and a few other agents emerged from the shadows. Kari's face morphed from triumph to terror. "This isn't happening," she shrieked as the agent pulled out a radio, calling for backup. But the operator remained defiant. That's when a realization struck me. This was bigger than just property disputes. Their plan had become increasingly scheme-like and brazen. I felt a surge of determination as I turned to face the bulldozer. "Enough playing games." I called, "Get off my property. Now." The operator hesitated, caught between orders and reality. "I'm just following orders." "Tell your bosses," Marcus interjected, that federal agents are here now. Move 1 inch of dirt, and you're looking at felony charges. The operator's bravado crumbled. He spotted the agents closing in and, without another word, threw the bulldozer into reverse, quickly backing away. The others scrambled to follow suit, abandoning their plans as they retreated down the path to the highway. Kari's, still rooted in disbelief, was left to witness the fallout. "You can't do this," she screamed. "I'll have you all arrested." But her threats fell on deaf ears. The moment her grip on power slipped was a moment I wouldn't soon forget. "Pack it up, Kari's." I crossed my arms, locking eyes with her. "Your reign of tyranny ends now." The fight had sparked a new ferocity within me, and there was no turning back. This was not just a battle for my ranch. It was a war against her greed and manipulation. The stakes had never been higher, and I was ready to fight tooth and nail to see it through. "Pack it up, Kari's." I crossed my arms, my glare steady as she stood frozen, the panic unmistakable in her eyes. The cacophony of retreating machinery faded, but a defiance still hung heavily in the air. You can't do this," she stammered, her voice rising like a startled animal cornered by predators. "I'll have you all arrested. You'll pay for this." The agents surrounding us exchanged amused glances, clearly unimpressed by her bluster. Her bravado was fading, and I intended to strip away the last shards of her confidence. "What exactly are you going to do, Kari's? Call your HOA. They're the ones who've just been run off my property." As I stepped closer, she stumbled back, her high heels no match for the gravel beneath her. "You think you can intimidate me? This isn't over." "Oh, I know it's not," I replied, matching her fervor with a calm intensity. "But the game's changed. You poked the wrong bear." Before she could retort, one of the agents raised a hand to his earpiece. "Sir, we have movement down by the south gate again. Repeat, movement." Adrenaline surged through me as I turned to glance toward the direction the agent was looking. The distant sound of engines revving reached my ears, and I cursed it under my breath. "It can't be them again." "Get back!" I shouted, ushering the agents to form a barrier as I took a determined step forward. The gravel road snarled as another set of trucks emerged, this time a convoy of 3 vehicles, each one emblazoned with a logo I recognized all too well, Jiang Holdings. Who the hell are they? Kari's eyes widened, the color draining from her cheeks as she realized the plans might be unraveling faster than she could control. "It looks like backup," one agent said, straightening his stance as he prepared for confrontation. "And it's too organized to be casual." "What do we do now?" another asked, urgency hitting the air like a live wire. "Hold your ground," I responded, keeping my gaze locked on the approaching vehicles. They can't just waltz onto private land without consequences. The SUV slowed to a stop, and out stepped sharply dressed men and women, each wearing sunglasses and an air of authority that seemed to choke the life out of Kari's overbearing confidence. It was time to play my cards. "Stay right here, and don't even think about running," I said, pointing at her. "You wanted to play hardball. Now let's see how you handle the heat." The first rep from Jiang Holdings, a slick man in a tailored suit, approached, his demeanor cool but watchful. "What's going on here?" he demanded, glancing between us. "Just a minor disturbance," I replied, my voice even. "But I'd suggest you back up and leave before you find yourself entangled in a much bigger mess." "From my perspective," he said, a smirk playing on his lips, "it looks like you are the disturbance. We have signed contracts and permits for land here." Kari seized on the moment, regaining a shred of her bravado. "Yes, that's right. He has no right to be here. You should have him removed." But the man raised a hand, silencing her before she could finish. "Wait, you're saying this ranch belongs to you?" "Indeed." I stepped forward. "This is my land, inherited legally from my late uncle." "Interesting." He began tapping away on his tablet, glancing from me to Kari's. "From what I gather, the HOA has been planning for community expansion, correcting property discrepancies, so how can you have claim here?" Kari's eyes lit up with the slightest glimmer of hope. "See? He's not even supposed to be here. You need to." But I was quicker. The HOA's allegations are fraudulent. They don't even have jurisdiction over this land. I suggest you look into that before you invest anything. The rep paused, his expression shifting from one of entitlement to reluctant caution. Fraud! Before he could respond, Marcus stepped forward, holding up a folder filled with evidence. We've gathered documentation, witness accounts, and illegal activity linking the HOA and Kari's to various schemes and forged contracts. Do not proceed with any agreements unless you wish to face consequences. Shock washed over Kari's face once more as the reality of a situation started to settle in. You don't know what you're doing. She turned to the Jiang representative, a semblance of panic returning to her voice. The HOA approved it. His brow furrowed as he reconsidered his stance. And what kind of approval should I trust you with? This makes everything unreliable. I'm going to have this place shut down. You can't believe him. Kari sputtered, her words growing frantic. Belief has nothing to do with this. The rep shot back, his tone chilling. I respond to hard facts, and the last thing I want is to get mixed up in a public scandal. If what you're saying is true, Kari's, this could cost us. The more Kari sputtered, the clearer it became. Her credibility was hanging by a thread. I'll get you the paperwork, she lied, desperately trying to regain control. But it was too late. The agents were already sending paperwork to the local authorities and pressing the issues raised by the evidence Marcus had presented. Do you think you're getting out of this unscathed? I said, my voice steady as steel. You're on federal radar now. This is beyond any local HOA meeting you could control. The agent turned to me, a crooked smile emerging. Let's see how she responds when we confront her with everything we've gathered. Just as I thought we had solidified our advantage, a loud crash shattered the tense atmosphere. A commotion erupted from behind the barn, followed by a shattering sound of breaking glass. Kari's whirled around, her expression morphing into one of pure terror. What was that? Something's not right, Marcus said, his voice a low growl as he turned. Let's check it out. We sprinted toward the sound. As we rounded the corner, our eyes widened in horror. The ranch's tool shed was engulfed in flames, billowing smoke rising as a fire raged, fueled by the remnants of whatever was left inside. No! Stop! I shouted, adrenaline pumping as I raced forward. But that's when I noticed a flash of movement, a figure darting behind the barn, disappearing from view. Down! Marcus yelled, diving to the ground as I felt a rush of air pass above us. A bullet ricocheted off the barn, sending splinters flying. Clear! In that split-second panic, everything changed. The tranquil life I had envisioned dissolved into chaos as Kari's dark alliance revealed itself. I scrambled to regain my footing, heart pounding. Someone was out to silence me, and it was no longer just about property lines. It was about survival. Get the agents! Marcus yelled, already gearing up for confrontation. There's no turning back. This just escalated. Every ounce of composure I had melted under the heat of the flames and the sound of unwelcome shots. I turned, ready to face whatever twisted destiny Kari's and her crew had plotted. There would be no backing down now. I was not just defending my land. I was fighting for my life. Get the agents! Marcus shouted, the urgency in his voice snapping me into motion. The crackling flames danced hungrily against the barn, casting an ominous glow over the chaos. I could hear the distant sound of voices and footsteps, the agents rallying, but a sense of dread clawed at my guts. Where's that coming from? I yelled, we need to stop whoever's behind this. Another shot fired, this one closer, ricocheting off the barn wall. I ducked instinctively, adrenaline spiking through my veins. Whoever it is, they are trying to keep us distracted. I called out, scanning the shadows for movement. There! Marcus pointed toward the edge of the property. A flicker of movement slithered between the trees. Something was wrong, and I had the unsettling feeling that the game had just escalated to a lethal level. Kari's was still behind me, her face slack with shock. What are they doing? She gasped, as flames began consuming the wooden structure, crackling with ferocity. I turned, wanting her to panic, to feel the weight of the reality we were all caught in. You wanted this fight, I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil. Now it's here. Face it. Suddenly, The agent who had been monitoring the scene shouted that reinforcements were on the way, but urgency gripped my heart. I couldn't wait for them. We need to get to the south gate. I yelled, dragging Marcus behind me. If whoever did this wants to silence us, we have to get to them first. I'll cover you, he replied, scanning the area. Just move. I didn't hesitate. We dashed toward the trees, heartbeats pounding in unison. Each step was thunderous against the silence that hung heavy in the air, where only the inferno behind us and the distant echo of agents responding filled the void. Then came a loud crack, followed by an explosion of wood and debris as a nearby crate exploded into the air, the source lost in the haze of smoke and chaos. I felt the heat wave against my face, and the adrenaline kicked in harder. Move! I shouted, pushing forward as we entered the tree line. Shadows stretched around us, catching the flicker of flames. We had to keep our heads down, and the further we went, the more distant the sound of the fire became. Did you see anything? Marcus whispered as we crouched low, scanning our surroundings for more threats. I shook my head, straining to listen, but my skin prickled with an instinct I had learned from years of being in high-stakes situations. Something's lurking. I can feel it. And then I saw it, more figures emerging from the other side of the property, their dark silhouettes moving in sync as if choreographed. My heart dropped. They were coming for us, and I couldn't let them. We can't go back now, I said, resolve hardening my voice. We have to confront them. Are you out of your mind? Marcus replied, his eyes darting nervously. There's too many of them. But I didn't care. I couldn't allow fear to dictate my choices anymore. We can't give Kari's a chance to slip away, or whoever that is. I pointed toward the moving shapes, their features obscured by the dim light. Fine, but we tackle them head on, Marcus said, clenching his jaw as he read it himself. On 3. 1, 2, 3. Together, we sprang from our cover and charged the approaching figures, lunging forward with adrenaline pumping furiously through us. But as we drew nearer, reality hit like a punch to the gut. These weren't mere trespassers. These were professionals, armed and ready. Down! Marcus shouted as he tackled me to the ground just as bullets whizzed past us, thudding into the trees. What the hell? I gasped. I thought these were just goons. They're anything but. Marcus threw himself back as more of the figures closed in, forming a perimeter around us. Change of plans. I shouted, diving for cover behind a thicket. We need an escape route. Not without a fight, he retorted, visibility narrowing as darkness loomed and chaos erupted around us. There was no way back. The flames behind us were now a mere specter of our fears. Before us lay a different kind of nightmare. We fired back in retaliation as shadows almost danced in the frenzy, each shot echoing off the trees. Push! I yelled, adrenaline coursing, as I burst forward into the fray again. But it was too late. As I emerged from the cover, I stumbled upon something on the ground, a body, lifeless and covered in a smudged shadow. It was one of Kari's HOA drones, its purpose now gone. He was just a kid, Marcus mused, eyes wide with shock. They sent them to do their dirty work. Breathe, Marcus. We can't focus on this, I said. We need to keep moving. We're sitting ducks out here, he shouted back, panic creeping into his voice. We find a way to outmaneuver them. I yelled. We draw them away. Together, we retreated further into the thicket, my mind racing as I calculated our next move. Behind us, the fire raged on, consuming everything in its path. I knew we couldn't let fear anchor us. The twist of fate was real. Kari's had made enemies not just against us, but a monster she had unknowingly awakened. Right or left? Marcus panted, glancing at me as we stumbled through a dense undergrowth. Left? It'll lead us back to the main road. We can flag down the agents, I said, urgency skimming my thoughts. But as we darted through the trees, gunfire erupted again, this time ringing out sharper, echoing through the woods. A painful scream pierced the chaos nearby, followed by a clipped laugh that sent chills crawling down my spine. Kari's voice cut through the madness, shrill and furious. You thought you could run? This is only the beginning. No, We can't let her win. I shouted, pushing harder, my focus sharp. They would come after us, and Kari's wouldn't stop until she had what she wanted. Ahead, I caught a glimpse of movement through the trees. There! The road! I yelled, gaining momentum as Marcus stayed close behind. As we burst through the foliage and onto the gravel road, confusion clashed with a current of chaos. I could see the agents gathering in the distance, but fierce figures were closing in behind us. We have to hold them off. I roared, drawing my weapon as the silhouettes advanced from the tree line. No more running. Marcus echoed, his expression a swift storm. Let's end this here. We turned to face our pursuers, ready for the final standoff, with the world ablaze behind us and our own fates hanging in the balance. What had begun as a struggle for land had now become a fight for survival. The endgame was set, and I was prepared for whatever darkness lay ahead. Guns drawn, we squared off under the looming threat of Kari's enforcers, the air heavy with anticipation. Their figures moved like ghosts, silently calculating the odds, sizing us up as we held our ground on the gravel road. The distant flames behind us flickered ominously, a reminder how quickly things had devolved. We need a plan, Marcus hissed, barely audible above the heavy breaths escaping our lips. I glanced to the side, scanning the tree line, but there was nowhere left to hide. Hold your fire, one of the figures shouted, stepping forward. I recognized the leader, a tall woman with a fierce gaze, someone who had made her presence known during the earlier chaos. We don't need to do this. A laugh escaped my lips, sharp and brittle. No, but you sure want to. Your bravado is admirable, but misguided. Her tone was even, betraying nothing as she gestured casually toward the advancing shadows behind her. This doesn't need to end in bloodshed. Tell that to your men. I shot back, adrenaline fueling my defiance. What do you plan to do? Take us hostage. Marcus moved closer to me, eyes glinting with hesitation and courage. If we can make it back to the agents, we can expose them all. The woman's eyes flickered briefly, assessing, but an unsettling smile grew on her lips. You're far from the agents. Darling, they think you're in trouble, waiting for the cavalry. Instead, you're just about to become the headline news. Then the ground beneath us trembled. I turned just in time to see dark, smoke-spewing vehicles revving their engines, barreling toward us down the road, headlights cutting through the night like sharp blades. What the... They've been waiting for this moment. The woman's eyes gleamed with cold satisfaction. You thought you could expose her lies, but there's a price for defiance. The moment you stepped onto my land, you stepped into a war. War. Marcus echoed, incredulity mixed with fear. Was this whole situation spiraled into something we had never anticipated? Enough! I roared, aiming my weapon at one of the approaching vehicles. Back off, or we'll make you regret it. Ha! You think you're in control. The woman laughed, and in that moment, everything shifted. The car skidded to a halt, dust pouring from its tires. Doors swung open, and a flash of metallic blue caught my eye. The unmistakable glint of a badge and the uniforms of law enforcement emerged. But not just any officers. They were the very ones sent to investigate Kari's and her corruption. Freeze! Drop your weapons. The officer's voice boomed, slicing through the chaos as they stepped forward. Now, this is interesting, the woman said, her tone shifting slightly from confident to uncertain. You wouldn't dare. Let's find out. Marcus shouted, taking advantage of the momentary distraction as he moved to flank her. Suddenly, gunfire erupted, bullets flying in all directions, but this time the tables had turned. The officers returned fire, chaos filling the air with smoke and fear. Back! I yelled, grabbing Marcus and pulling him to the side as the sounds of ricochet echoed around us. The balance had shifted dramatically, yet Kari's figures pressed on, seemingly unfazed. Fall back! The woman screamed, her warpath crumbling as her men began to retreat into the shadows, but not without return fire. We couldn't let them escape. We can't let them regroup. I gasped, adrenaline pumping. They'll come back with reinforcements. Marcus nodded, determination flaring in his eyes. Then we need to end this once and for all. As the officers pushed back Kari's men, I caught a glimpse of movement from the corner of my eye, a shadow darting away toward the tree line. There! We need to pursue. We sprinted down the road, the chaos behind us fading into a blur. Heart pounding, I followed the fleeting silhouette until we reached the edge of the woods. But that's when it happened. A deafening shot rang out, and I felt the ground tremble under my feet. My heart dropped as I turned to see a figure stumble out from behind a tree, a dark figure, swaying as blood pooled at his feet. It was one of the agents. "Get down!" I shouted as I dove to push Marcus behind me, the realization crashing over me. "They're not done. This is a trap. We need to take cover." Marcus yelled, urgency weaved with dread as we crouched low just behind a tree. The next volley of shots rang through the air, and I could hear the anguished cries of men from both sides. "Go!" I called, shoving Marcus forward toward the agent, desperate to retrieve whatever intel remained. "I'll hold them off." "No, you can't. Just go." My lungs boned, but I couldn't let fear drive me. I needed to keep them distracted so Marcus could find the truth buried beneath this hollow mass of deceit. As he slipped away, my eyes remained fixed on the sounds of chaos around me. The agent, still clutching his wound, weakly pulled a small flash drive from his pocket. "They're using codes. Take it. You can expose everything. I'll make sure it won't be wasted." I shouted, eyes steeling with purpose. The gunfire raged on as I prepared to weave back into the fray. The woman's voice called out over the din. "You think you can win? This is what we want. A cycle of violence. We'll leave you with nothing. This will be your undoing. No more cycles." I shouted back, determination burning bright within me. "It ends here." With a surge of adrenaline, I charged at the nearest group of Kari's men, using speed and agility, weaving between shots, closing the gap. I tackled the nearest figure to the ground, disarming him. "Stop!" he yelled, panic etched across his face. "We were just following orders." "Not anymore," I declared, swinging my fist into his jaw to silence him. Every blow connected with purpose. The fear, the anger of knowing we were being pawns in a wicked game of morals. But just then, I felt a sharp stab of pain in my side as the world twisted. I glanced down to see blood seeping through my shirt, a realization crashing like ice. "No!" Marcus's voice screamed from behind me, having returned. "You're hurt." I staggered, breathless. "I'm fine." "You're not fine." He grabbed my arm, and we stumbled back together as the gunfire continued to whip through the air. The agent's flash drive slipped from my fingers, skidding to a stop as chaos enveloped us again. "Stay with me," Marcus yelled, his voice frantic amidst the chaos, desperation clouding every word as he realized the gravity of the situation. But before I could respond, a blinding light erupted from the bushes beside us, illuminating the scene in a shocking flash. My vision cleared just enough for me to see Kari standing there, the flash drive in her hand, triumphant and smug as the remaining enforcers regrouped around her. "Thought you could take me down that easily," she sneered, the fervor of chaos swirling like shards of glass around us. "Enough games. Kari's." I shouted, grasping at what strength I had left. "This ends now." "Does it?" she mocked, her expression shifting into something darker, fueled by rage. "You think anyone cares about you? They wouldn't blink twice if you vanished." "I'm not going anywhere," I replied, feeling Marcus's strength pull me back. "But what about you?" Suddenly, sirens blared through the night, growing louder. The agents had finally charged in, flanked by law enforcement. My heart fluttered with hope. "No, no, no." Kari shrieked, panic flooding her voice as the tide shifted dangerously beneath her. "You can't do this." But it was too late. The tension snapped as the agents surged in like a flood, bringing the chaos and betrayal to the forefront, arresting Kari's in the throes of her plans. Realizing she had nowhere left to turn, I turned my eyes to her, feeling an unexpected wave of calm wash over me. "Enjoy your empire of lies, Kari's. It's about to crumble." As the agents disentangled the enforcers from their misguided loyalty, I collapsed against a tree, blood tracing warm lines down my side. Marcus, I breathed, feeling a weight begin to lift. He knelt beside me, panic still in his eyes. We did it. We exposed her. But as the arrest unfolded, everything abruptly changed. A distant rumbling reached my ears, growing louder. My heart sank as I realized what it meant. Guys! An officer shouted, panic brimming in his voice. We need to move. There's something coming. Time slowed as the world around us shifted into chaos once more. Shadows crept from the tree line. A fleet of SUVs, darker and more sinister than before, engines revving as they lurched forward, intent on one purpose. And with every breath, a roaring realization shook me to my core. Kari's wasn't the end of our fight. She was only the beginning. Brace yourselves. I yelled, adrenaline flooding back into my veins as the ground shook beneath us, and the reality hit like a thunderous wave. This isn't over. The agent scrambled, the air filled with confusion once more, as the SUV door opened, revealing a figure taking control, a man in a tailored suit, his expression cold and calculating. Let's play a different game, he called out, voice raking through the chaos. And the world spun around me, a merciless whirlpool of conflict I couldn't escape, revealing an insidious reality that promised this fight was just a veil of an even darker truth. My vision blurred as pain surged through me again, but one thought burned bright in my mind. This was a battle we couldn't afford to lose.